both got wasted, got ourselves to the concert, and then I went backstage. The doorman doesn't want to let us in, and I said, okay, well, I'll just call Bruce. And the doorman starts laughing. I call Bruce, he lets us in. The doorman kind of lost his shit as well. We go into this tiny little dressing room with the band, and of course it was like a crazy thing to see all these guys, but they were just drinking fucking tea and doing breathing exercises and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, guys, we're going somewhere afterwards. And I reserved in the strip club, and they were just no. And then on my influences, there is a little bit of a disclaimer here, because I am born in Iceland pre-CDs, we had one radio station. They had one pop rock show per week. There was one TV channel. There was no TV on Thursdays. So you basically heard what your parents were playing. I heard the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, obviously, and whatever your friends said. And then I had an older sister, so I got a little bit of stuff through her. But obviously this had a big influence on, what bands and albums I actually got my hands on. And so out of that, I started loving bands and albums that I think if I would have lived in a bigger place like the US or the UK or something where I had more access, I probably wouldn't have gotten into. And to make it worse, as I said, I went to that farm, and there we actually couldn't always reach the radio because there was a mountain next to the farmhouse. So we had a few cassettes that basically was the supply of music that we had that summer. This is where it all started. That's Kiss. I had this cousin or a nephew or whatever that was older than me, and I was his mom's favorite. So I came into his room, I saw these posters on the wall. I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, and I just fell in love with this. What is there not to love? Guys with makeup. And he had a lot of albums because his father was a sailor, and he would buy the albums abroad and bring them to Iceland. And in the beginning, I just loved the image. I didn't really care about the music, but his mom kind of forced him to play the music for me and record it to tapes and give it to me and stuff like that. And I like that mystique and this. And also, what was so cool about it is that back then there was no internet. There was nothing to tell you what was real, what was true, and what was going on. So there was this rumor that the makeup was killing them. And I remember when Ace Frehley left the band and Vinnie Vincent joined. I read that in a German teenage magazine, and I just thought for years that Vinnie Vincent's name was Vinnie Kampt, because that means the headline was Ace leaves, Vinnie comes or arrives. And so I didn't know, and there was some romance in this because this was a very fertile breeding ground for bullshit and rumors and stuff like that. So I was very sad when the makeup came off, but and kind of felt that there was a little bit of a betrayal to people like me. They played in Iceland in 1988, but I couldn't go because I was working in the farm, and that was on the Crazy Nights tour, I think, And but then later on, I was lucky. I went to see them a lot, and they're actually the only band that I have seen twice in the same week. I saw them in England, and then I saw them in Prague in the same week. It was kind of interesting. And I liked them, or stayed loyal to them even after the vocal stuff becoming really, really shitty. Now the best album with them for me is this one, is Destroyer. It has Detroit Rock City, which is one of the best rock songs ever written, and then it had Beth, and Beth was the kind of song that I imagined as a kid that I would be singing to my girlfriend. I can't come home because I'm rocking with the boys. I've never been rocking with the boys, but it's been many times that I couldn't make it home. This is also like a cousin of mine that played this for me, and I was scared. I remember in the intro to Number of the Beast, I was really, really scared when the guy was, saying, "Oh, on earth and all that stuff," And but then Bruce's vocals somehow made me get my confidence back, and when he started singing, because there was some sort of a defiance and energy in him. My favorite album with them is actually a live album. Who doesn't remember Scream for Me, Long Beach? I think this is probably one of the best live albums ever made. I played it to shreds, and the energy from the band is just amazing. Bruce is in peak form, and I really liked this band up until kind of Fear of the Dark, or including Fear of the Dark. Then I kind of abandoned them, and I kind of felt that they were a little bit silly after that, and I'll come to that a little bit later. I was too cool for school. I've seen them multiple times, always a pleasure. And in 2005, actually, when I started working in Denmark, I was running an airline in Denmark. Then Bruce was a pilot, and he was flying for my airline. And I remember this very well because he called me, and I was sitting next to a guy in a meeting, and he called, "Hi, Almar, this is Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden. Do you want to come and see us tonight?" And the guy next to me could hear it on my phone. And he just slided out of the seat. He just couldn't believe it. So he invited me to bring 3 people with me to see Iron Maiden. And obviously, me being at that time, maybe, I don't know, 31, 2, I thought that this was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So I made a reservation in a strip club and, booked a table there for us. And then me and my friend both got wasted, got ourselves to the concert. And then I went backstage. The doorman doesn't want to let us in. And I said, okay, well, I'll just call Bruce. And the doorman starts laughing. I call Bruce. He lets us in. The doorman kind of lost his shit as well. We go into this tiny little dressing room with the band, and of course it was like a crazy thing to see all these guys, but they were just drinking fucking tea and doing breathing exercises and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, guys, we're going somewhere afterwards. And I reserved in the strip club, and they were just no. And then Bruce just wanted to talk airplanes, and we were in this tiny little dressing room, and all of a sudden somebody farted, and it was so horrible. And I was thinking, like, you get to meet your legend, and the only thing that happens is that you fart. And then I immediately, of course, me being me, who farted? And then there was one of our 4 guys, not my friend from Iceland, but another guy, Danish guy. He was kind of behind the curtain and raised his eye. I did it, I'm sorry. And it was a tiny little room. So it was very bizarre standing there with Iron Maiden talking about airplanes with Bruce, and somebody farted. Now, then the gigs, they go on stage, then they come off stage, and we are even more drunk, been drinking some shots and stuff like that. And then I go harassing them again, when are we going to the club? When are we going to? And Bruce just said, listen, I just want to go home. And when he left, I wrote him a text message like, metal up your ass, you pussy, or something like that. And I haven't really heard from Bruce Dickinson since then. But I think I will actually reach out to him and see if he actually remembers this story like me. How I got into Black Sabbath is actually through Ozzy, because there was a guy in my town that made me listen to the tribute album, Randy Rhoads album. And that album just totally hooked me. And Ozzy was like a madman. He was a role model for me. I thought, okay, if this is how it should be. And it was like a proof that you can be messed up, but still successful. And I later found out that he's probably just very lucky with his wife. But it was through him that I kind of got into Sabbath. And I knew songs like Iron Man and all these kind of legendary songs, but it wasn't really until I kind of got into him that I kind of went into their catalog. And the best album, I would say, with him is the tribute album. Now, that was the album that, Randy's guitar solos in Mr. Crawley and in Suicide Solution. Tommy Aldridge on the drums. It was just amazing stuff. And that was kind of also the album that opened my eyes to these kind of guitar heroes somehow, that, that there could be bands where actually the technical abilities of the guitarist would be the main thing somehow. Yeah, this album here, if I take Black Sabbath album, for me, this is the best album. It's just a banger from start to finish. And the crazy thing about it, I don't know if you know it, guys, but the Paranoid, the main track was written in 20 minutes as a filler on the album. And that song is just legendary. Up until that song was written, the album was supposed to be called War Pigs. Now, this band changed everything, obviously. I remember where I heard this first, which apartment in which building, all of that. I thought there was something wrong with the stereo. I'd never heard anything like this. And it took me a while, actually, to admit that I liked the energy somehow. I wasn't sure that I was allowed to like it. There was just something so weird about this. Yeah, that was this album, obviously. And that was just a game changer somehow. I didn't even know that you could play like this, or you were allowed. And I saw the picture on the back of the album, and I thought, I feel sorry for their parents, because, like, these look like kind of normal kids, but they're making music like this. And I'm not sure if it wasn't for Metallica that I would have ever gotten into some of the harder stuff that I later got into. This was definitely my kind of gateway drug. And I think I would have stayed more on kind of the traditional heavy metal classic rock side if it wouldn't have been for them. And I've seen them many, many times. I've always kind of managed to find beauty in what they do somehow. And I know that a lot of people claim that they sold out and they've done this and done that. I don't know. I think it's human nature to want to grow, to want to expand, to want to do something different, to want to, move the boundaries somehow. And I think that they have just really, really done that in a great way. Do I love all their albums? No, I don't. But do I respect what they have done? Yeah, very much. Since you got into Metallica, you kind of had to know about this band, because when you got to know something about Metallica, you started hearing those stories about this unruly guy that was fired from Metallica, and that was obviously Dave Mustaine. And there comes the farm, because in the farm we were 2 older guys, and each of us brought 4 to 5 cassettes each summer to the farm, and then some mixtapes as well. And one of those was Killing Is My Business, Business Is Good, which I thought was just the name of it was like insane to me. And through this cassette stuff that went on there, I got into, this band obviously, and then Halloween, Dio, even what's it called, King Diamond and stuff like that. But it was this album here that kind of is my favorite Megadeth album, which is kind of strange because I just heard it so many times, and it was all on a Walkman, like a cassette Walkman with a battery. So I've heard it on various different speeds. When the battery is running out, the songs are just a little bit slower, but you still listen to it because you just had nothing else to do. So with this album, I just love it. It's a banger from start to finish. And I met David Ellefson, I don't know, a few months ago. He was having a concert here. I had an interview with him that you can actually find on the channel if you haven't already. Great guy, super nice. It was bizarre. He sat down with me. They told me, he has 5 minutes. We sat down for half an hour, and then I found out that my camera was off. But luckily, my friend was there, and he was recording on the phone, so I managed to kind of stitch out of it some sort of interview. Anyway, told them that this was my favorite album, and I always have these kind of confessions to make somehow. More on that with Slash. And I'm going to see him again, actually. They're coming here with Kings of Thrash later this year, I think, or early next year or something like that. And then they're basically playing the stuff off of this album, so that's going to be amazing. And I've seen Megadeth, obviously, multiple times, and I've always been very impressed with them because they have such a quality in their delivery, and somehow they've stayed a little bit more true to their path than a lot of other bands, I feel. Now, next band is probably my favorite band of all times. Now, this band was scary, and that's again because pre-internet rumors spread. So one rumor was that Dr. Tom, or Tom Araya, was a doctor, and that he provided the band with blood that they would drink. And you had no way to kind of debunk this. There was no fact checkers back then. And of course, the whole kind of demonic, satanic thing was scary in some way. And I got into them on this album here, which, on South of Heaven. And it took me longer to get into Raining Blood because I have always needed this kind of groove somehow in music. I need to connect to some sort of a groove. I don't know what it is. And there's plenty of that on this album, obviously. Now, but I love also the previous stuff as well, Hell of AIDS and Raining Blood and Show No Mercy, and even Haunting the Chapel. And I drew on my school bag, South of Hell. I mean, I didn't have the album, and I didn't know that it was actually called South of Heaven, so I just drew South of Hell. And there are friends of mine that still make fun of me today for that. I have a tattoo here on my ribs with the crosses that are on Seasons of the Abyss. The only music-related tattoo that I have. I've seen them a lot of times live. They've always delivered, always been amazing. And I kind of stayed loyal. This is one of the few bands that I stayed loyal to when I became too cool for metal. They would be, after drinking heavily, the last song before going downtown would be Raining Blood. That's sort of another kind of game changer, I would say, because at this time you got like Van Halen, Bon Jovi, Mötley Crüe, kind of a little bit of softies in some way. And those guys came with some, attitude. There was a DJ at school that had some contacts in the US, so he got the album actually really early. So I think we got it the year it came out, and we're playing it throughout that winter there. And when he played Welcome to the Jungle, I realized that there's a new sheriff in town. It's just this I don't give a shit attitude about it. And I bought cowboy boots, and I bought a leather jacket from my dad, which seems to have worked because I actually lost my virginity to this album, and which was on repeat for 2 to 3 years in my CD player, which probably in the anticipation that would grant me more luck with the ladies. And then there was this concert at the Ritz in 1988 that was just insanely good, and I just watched it in its entirety last weekend or the weekend before, and you just gotta see that Guns N' Roses Ritz '88, and they don't give a shit if they're out of tune, and it's just pure fucking rock and roll. And I saw Axl Rose when he was running Guns N' Roses on his own in, I think, 2007 or 8 or something like that. And then, but since the reunion, I've managed to see them like 6 times. It's been fun. I mean, especially the first 1 or 2 times was amazing. But I feel with I don't know if you guys have seen them. I feel with Guns N' Roses, what they're doing wrong somehow is that they are trying too much. They're 30 songs, so it becomes a drag, and it takes long for Axl to get warm and stuff like that. So anyway, so the first time when I met Guns N' Roses, saw Guns N' Roses, sorry, it was here in Prague actually, and I had a group of friends coming over from Iceland to come to the concert, and we went to a steakhouse the night before. And when we are leaving, we see that Slash is sitting there, and I had a very strong urge to talk to Slash, which the staff of the restaurant and his bodyguard had a very strong urge to resist. So they wanted me not to talk to him, and obviously I was. I went to him, and they brushed me away. And then in the end, Slash actually tells his bodyguard, let him come, let him come. And so I sat down next to him, and I'm kind of in a blackout about it. But I did shake his hand, and I did tell him that I lost my virginity to his album, which he found very nice, and he was probably very honored. He's probably still thinking about this. And but that was, yeah, it was. I don't think I've ever been as starstruck as when I met him. But I felt that I really needed to tell him this. So maybe it was just the pressure that built for all these years to tell him about losing my virginity. Same thing with this band, Pantera. It was a huge game changer somehow. And I remember where I was. It was being played in a truck I was sitting in, and one of my friends, he founded the first thrash metal band in Iceland, and he had this on cassette. And that cassette didn't leave the tape for a long time. And it just had this groove. I just remember thinking, I'd never heard anything that grooved this much, and the sound quality and all that stuff, because it was a little bit more sophisticated than thrash. And the drum sound, I just loved the drum sound. It was so wet. It was so amazing. And the album, obviously, Cowboys from Hell. And I went to see them on the tribute lineup. That was amazing last year. I'm going to go again this year or next year. Next year, I think. And I bought tickets. And I would really love them to record something. I mean, just 2-3 new songs and then some live recording of a show or something like that. That would be super, super cool. Then comes this band here, Slipknot. I mean, they kind of got me back into metal somehow, because at this time I was listening to, when they were kind of getting hot, I was listening to Limp Bizkit and a lot of other stuff like that. I kind of left my roots behind in some way. And keep in mind, I was in law school. There wasn't a lot of metalheads there, and I was, then in my companies, it wasn't really a lot of heavy metal around me somehow. So for me, they were in some way the band that brought me back, because they had some modern stuff and some pretty crazy stuff happening with the beer kegs and the DJing and all that stuff. So, and that made them very interesting, and and kind of brought me back in. My favorite album with them actually is this one here, which is. The Subliminal Verses, Volume 3. And what I like about this album is just the energy from start to finish. I've seen them, I don't know how many times, probably 10, 15 times or something like that. The energy is always amazing. Corey Taylor is probably one of the better frontmans in the game. And what I like about, they keep the tension in the concert all the time by all these soundscapes that they have in between and what he's saying and stuff like that. And I don't think I've ever seen them do a bad gig. I've seen them play for 60,000 people. I've seen them play for 5,000 people, 3,000 people, and it's just an amazing live band. This is a band that I was kind of late to the game with. I knew many songs, and I bought Ram It Down on CD when it came out in 1990, loved it, but I was never really kind of digging deep into the catalog until kind of the last 10 years or something like that. So obviously there's tons of different stuff. There's a lot of diversity, a lot of development in their sound and how they do stuff. And but I can't really say that there is one specific album that I like more than the other. I mean, there's just so many good albums like Stream of Revenge, Killing Machine, Greater Steel, even Ram It Down. I love Defenders of the Faith. So I saw them 3 times live, 2015, and then twice actually this year. And also very impressed with the last album. This is one of the bands that has probably aged the best out of the old bands. Obviously, there are others, like I was listening to Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple, and I love all these bands. I listen to Dio. This Dream Evil with Dio is my favorite Dio album, but that came because that was the only album that I had on a cassette, so I just listened to it to shreds as my favorite Dio song, All the Fools Sailed Away. System of a Down was also a band that kind of, brought a new dimension. I loved Alice in Chains, still love them. I had Dio twice, sorry guys. It was supposed to be Slaughter of the Soul with At the Gates. Entombed in death metal. No, it was supposed to be Beneath the Remains with Sepultura. So, I mean, I kind of like everything, but obviously my influences are very shaped by the fact that I was born so early that a lot of the stuff that is big now wasn't even there. So, or was kind of just starting out. But I listen to everything. I'm also a big fan of Muse, Oasis, Blur, Chemical Brothers, Prodigy, Depeche Mode. I've even seen Justin Timberlake live, Stevie Wonder, and Elton John, and I loved it all. So I don't want to, exclude any music. I think as long as music evokes some emotion or some sort of a reaction in me, then I'm happy with that music.